So,
Okay.
yep.
All right, it's 5 PM, June 16th, 2020. We'll call to order the Winnebago County Public Works Committee meeting. Presents myself, Dave Tassoni, David Kelly, Bert Gurl, Carlos Molina, and we have John Gilberti from the State's Attorney's Office, and we're expecting Jim Webster. See if he shows up or not. First order of business would be, I would move to approve the May 19th, 2020 and May 28th, 2020 minutes, and I would so move. Seconded by Mr. Kelly and Mr. Gurl. I see Jim Webster is in attendance now.
Yes.
Any questions, comments, corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. I don't see anybody on the computer here. Any public participation out there that we don't know about? Okay, seeing none, I would move on to our legislation, which is resolution 20-0. Oh, I'm sorry,
Excuse me,
Mr.
Chair.
Kelly.
Yeah, a fella called me this afternoon and he didn't know if he was going to be able to join us for the public participation, but he expressed an interest in striping at intersections.
Yep, and
seeing-
not to cut you off, David, but I got a couple messages from him as well. And I know the gentleman and I know what he's talking about, and we'll touch that on unfinished business.
I'm glad you do because I didn't quite get it.
Yeah, I got it. And we'll take that up towards the end. And thank you with that. So anyway, our first item on the agenda is resolution 20-022. It's a resolution authorizing the execution of a preliminary engineering services agreement with Chastain and Associates, LLC, for the purpose of completing contract plans and box cover replacements on Yale Bridge Road over Sugar Creek. It's looks like a Winnebago County cost of $44,866. It's out in, I believe, Jim Webster's district. And I would ask Mr. Molina to speak to that, please.
Oh, do we need a motion?
Yes, I would move. I would move, and seconded by Mr. Gurl
So be it.
and Mr. Kelly. Thank you.
All right, this is we actually have federal funds to do the construction for this box culvert on Yale Bridge Road, just a little bit east of Holly Road, west of your road, Gemma, Baswell Road. And it's a culvert that is in bad shape. It's over the Sugar Creek, not the Sugar River, but the Sugar Creek. And what this is the structural engineering services so that we can start the engineering to replace this culvert, hopefully yet next year. And again, we have the federal funds to do the construction. The engineering has to come, from us. So the $44,866, that's coming out of County Bridge.
Would this be an 80-20 match, Carlos?
For the construction, yes.
And then at the end of the day, what's our cost?
The engineering is the full 44,866. The construction estimate, I believe the grant or the funds that we have from the feds is about $400,000. So we will pay about what would that be, 80,000.
Okay, and you're looking at
Once the construction is done.
possibly sometime next year?
Yeah, that's the goal.
Okay. Jimmy, this is up in your district. Any questions, concerns, comments on this item?
No, I don't get a whole lot of complaints about things. There was one that I got recently and I called Carlos on it, and they're addressing that issue now, and might have to do something jointly with the township to put a pipe under the road. But anyways, people out here are generally pretty happy. I think once they get home, they stay home, and pretty quiet out this way.
Well, with all the scenery out there, what can you complain about?
I know.
Heck with a pothole or two, once you get home, you see deer and turkey in the woods, Mr. Molina, go ahead. You got something?
Yeah, I wanted to add that, when, we do our bridge inspections, we call it bridge inspection, even though this is a box culvert, we do that every 2 years. And, we rate the structures based on a formula that the state and the feds have. And then once they fall under a certain criteria, that's when they're eligible for federal funds. So that's how, we select these structures that need replacement.
All right. Any other questions or concerns about this item? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion passes. Next item on the agenda would be, let me find it. I scrolled down a little too much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Resolution 20-023, and it's an ordinance prohibiting parking on Old River Road, which is County Highway 64 between Carlson Court and Wake Forest Parkway. I see it's a combination of County Board District 2 and 3. I would ask for a motion on that item. Moved by Mr. Girl, seconded by Mr. Webster. And Carlos, would you speak to this, please?
Yes, thank you. We've been asked in the past by the Rockton Police if we could help him out with, the fact that people park. This is in front of the Stephen Mack Middle School on Old River Road, right in front of where the track field is. So what happens is, even though they have a pretty big parking lot in the school, parents, and other people park along Old River Road, because then they can, see whatever's happening on the field. And then the kids, when they're done, they just, after practice or whatever, they just walk across the road. And then, again, people are parked on both sides of Old River Road. So the Rockland Police has asked us if we could help them out. In the past, we have just put some temporary signs that says no parking in front of the school, but we want to make it a more permanent situation so that they can actually enforce the no parking. And then I got they contacted me again a couple months ago, and in order to do the enforcement part, it has to be an ordinance approved by the county board, and that's what we're asking if we could declare that area as indicated here in front of the school as no parking. Again, there is plenty of parking in the school, and if not, there is subdivision streets there where they could park and walk towards the field. I have I talked to Jim Webster about it a couple of weeks ago, and I did the same with Steve Schultz, and they both expressed that they had no concerns, I guess, with bringing this over to you.
I would just ask Carlos, so what are we looking at? Maybe a 500-foot stretch, 1,000 feet, or what might it be?
It's probably about a 500 plus stretch, on both sides of the road.
Are they, and then I'm just out of curiosity, are they just gonna go a little bit north or south of that and park, or will that take care of it?
Yep, it will take care of it. Again, just because of the stretch that we're they probably have to walk longer now if they park outside of that no parking area than if they were to park in the parking lot.
Okay, Mr. Webster, did you have something?
No, I was just gonna say, I'm okay with it. It's a safety issue, So if that was the only place to park, I would understand, but it's not. Like Carlos said, there's plenty of off-street parking.
Okay, I'm good with it. Anybody else got any concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion's approved. I don't have no report. Like I say, if we, we'll take a few things that Carlos has, and I'll speak to a couple items after he's done talking about what he wants to.
Great. So thank you, Mr. Tassoni. Can I go back a little bit to the legislation? And I wanted to ask John Giliberti, because it is an ordinance. Does this have to lay over at county board?
2 weeks.
Okay. So
My understanding is 2 weeks on an ordinance, yes.
okay.
And I think not that it would be a big deal. It takes a special majority of a vote as well.
yeah, and we don't need whatever it takes. There's no hurry in it because there is no events happening right now. So
Yep.
whatever it takes.
John,
Okay.
are you out there, John? Did you want to add to that at all? John's MIA, so we'll move on. Go on, Carlos.
Okay, MFT allotments, this is just another update. We, as you know, we receive MFT allotments every month. And then when we looked at the allotments for the month of May, we were down again about 50% of what we typically would get, in the month of May. So when we look at what we have received so far, and when we project, that we will receive till the end of the fiscal year, we think we're going to be about $1 to $1.1 million, $1.1 million less than what we thought that we were going to receive on MFT funds. That's still ahead of what we were last year because we got that additional MFT funds. So, just to give you a lump sum, if we had received what we expected, it would have been about $6.1 million on MFT funds for this fiscal year. We believe that we're going to be about $5 million. Before the tax, 19 cents last year, we were only receiving about 3.6. So we're still ahead, but not as far as we thought we would be because of mostly, COVID-19. So that's as far as the MFT allotment. The budget.
Carlos, hold on a second, if you would. Mr. Kelly, got a question?
Well, not a question so much as a comment. The state giveth and the state taketh away.
Carry on, Carlos.
Yeah, with that said, I actually I'm going to go back to the MFT allotment. I mentioned at the last meeting that the state did this bond, and we are receiving an additional $1.5 million twice a year. So that's $3 million on this bond funds that the state has issued to all the local agencies. And we're going to receive that for 3 years. So it's going to be a total of, if it does happen, if it doesn't stop, it'll be a total of $9 million, $1.5 million every 6 months. We already received the first of 1.574. So, that's also obviously helping us, carry on with our program.
And Carlos, just to add that, I think we talked about it at one last or time or two ago of our one of our committee meetings. And like I say, I'll leave it up to you to determine what our biggest bang for that buck is, whether it's out there for engineering and doing some stuff. And I think, I don't know what the time frame was when you had to spend that money, but whatever you can best utilize it with, if you come up with a plan, just let the committee know and see what everybody thinks about it.
Yep, and that is my plan. We're just kind of putting it together. We wanted to see where we were as far as our budget goes, and what this COVID was going to do to our budget, and then we can come out with a plan. As part of our budget, which is what we're working on right now, we're supposed to submit numbers to downtown next week. I think it's June 23rd. For our first submittal. And then, I'm going to be sending you guys a copy of what we submitted as a draft. There's always some changes, that happen between now and the time that you approve it. But absolutely, I will talk to you guys about what we're planning on spending the money. As far as when do we have to spend the money, we have until July 1st of 2025 to spend all $9 million. That is a requirement. And then we have to designate a project within a year after we receive, the allotment. So for the first $1.5 million that we already received, we have till the end of the year to, designate a project that we're going to spend it on. That's the requirement. All right, the next so going back to the agenda, we're finishing up, our numbers, and then we'll be submitting later this week to Steve. downtown. Update on the grant applications. You might also recall that I mentioned that Senator Severson and Representative Sosnowski, sent us an email saying that they had procured $500,000 by Severson and $700,000 by Sosnowski to be used in Winnebago County at a project that we had been talking to them in the past. That's the intersection of Guilford and Bell School Road. So we had to follow the process of applying for the funds. And so we're, there's a lot of paperwork, but we're about to submit. The deadline is next week, and we're getting very close to finishing it up and then submitting. Again, that's $1.2 million that we can use on that project. Once we know that we have that money, then we'll come to you for an engineering agreement to do a design for that intersection. I was thinking, going back to the MFT allotment that we talked about, this is just a thought. Again, we haven't really put it on paper as that maybe we wanted to add to that project and then just extend that intersection of Bell School, from Guilford down to the south, where the 4 lanes are. So make it all a 4 lane, and then because we have an agreement with the city of Rockford, we can jurisdictional transfer that to the city of Rockford after we finish that section, which is basically from Argos to Guilford Road. So that's something that we're discussing and talking about. All right.
Excuse me, Carlos, hold on a second, Mr. Webster.
Comment about the last 2 items that you talked about there. What a stark difference this is from previous years when we didn't have enough money to stripe a crosswalk,
Right.
And now you're in a position there, we're in a position where the money you just spoke about, those 2 issues there, I don't know, it's getting close to $3 million there. And you're in a position where we have to find a place to spend it.
Right.
It's crazy how our fortunes have changed financially there for the highway department in the near future here. So
It looks bright.
Yeah, and like I say, hopefully the state keeps their word and everything goes as figured, and people get back to driving and spending money, and our MFT goes up, and there's better days to come.
Agreed. The other, we also have another grant application. That's a pretty small chance that we'll get it, but we're still going to submit. This is again through the Department of Commerce. I had talked to you about. We were looking at doing some bike path extensions, some ADA compliant. We don't have ADA ramps on the Perryville Road path, so we're applying for that and extending some sections of the path. Whether it is from Bell School to Perryville, or from the north end to Swanson Road. So we're going to be submitting an application for that as well. But that's there's only $25 million for that, and it's a statewide. And so again, we'll give it a try and see what happens. There was I had mentioned again, I don't know if you remember, but we also were going to submit for the at least a portion of the phase 1 for Riverside, the Riverside corridor. After we did some work, we did find out that they were not going to fund, a study. It had to be a project that you had to take to construction rather soon. So our phase 1 is not eligible for that. So what I'm doing with our budget, and it's going to be in our budget, we're going to put a couple $100,000 for to start the phase 1, for the Riverside corridor, so that when the federal funds become available, we're, pretty far along with the engineering study.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, and the last thing that I had is the Great American Cleanup. We do that. We support this event every year, And it usually happens around Earth Day, the end of April, because of COVID, that was postponed. And now they're going to be holding it this Saturday, throughout the county. They thought we're going to have a lot of volunteers. I still think that they have quite a few, but not, for the obvious reasons, don't have that many, but still there's going to be a lot of people out there this weekend cleaning up our roads. And we help out by, helping with supplies, gloves, vests, grabbers, and things like that. We spend anywhere between 3,000 and, 1 year we spent $5,000 on supplies. The county, has committed, for many years now to doing this. We're okay. We're always happy to do it. I just want to mention to you that, we do spend about 3,000, to 5,000. This year's 3,000 on supplies. Now when the groups go out and clean, they clean on city streets, on township roads, villages roads, but we're the only ones, providing the supplies. So I just kind of want to mention that to you so that that's how it works. We're happy to do it. It comes out of our budget, but that's how it's always been. And if you're okay with us continuing, yeah,
Carlos, just want to say, I mean, that to me, it sounds like a no-brainer, and I would hope the rest of the board would be on. If we need $3,000 or $5,000 from the host fees to make that happen and just give you a little relief over there, that sounds like it's pretty doable. How do you guys feel? It looks like everybody's a thumbs up on that. So whatever it takes for us to get a resolution, or at least talk to the caucuses, and like I say, give you a little relief over there. But countywide deal, city, townships, villages, and everything that's going on. Gosh, for what we spend money on at host fee funds, that sounds like it's just right for that. So we'll try to pursue that.
okay. Thank you.
Anything else on your items, Carlos?
That's it. That's all I had.
Okay, couple of things. I did talk to Keith McDonald today, and I don't know the man personally, but we've all heard of Mike Zintek. Took him a little while to get here. Took the long road to get seated, I guess. He's currently out of town, I guess, but Keith had talked to me about seating him on our Public Works Committee. I said, yeah, sure, fine. I don't know what he does for a living. I heard heating and air, construction, or welding, or whatever it is, but hopefully he brings something to the table, and I'm guessing he'll fill the vacant seat of Boomer. And so whenever he gets back in town and can get on Zoom, or whether in person or whatever it is. I did get a call from Mike Castronovo. I believe he lives out there on Harrison and Mulford area, from if my memory serves me right. But he had just talked about it. It made a little sense to me. And if you can just think of this, I don't know exactly what intersections he was talking about, but let's just take Perryville and Newburgh, and you've got your northbound two through lanes. It seemed as though he was trying to explain that the stop lines for the through lanes were more north than the stop line for the right turn lane. And the people that are wanting to turn right can't see past those, to the left of them. Do you know anything about that, Carlos? Or, I mean, I understand what he's saying. I just don't know the specific intersections, but he was just getting at if maybe the stop line for the right turn was forward of the through lane, so they could, they're 5 or 8 feet past you, so they could see to the left and get moving a little more expeditiously.
Right. No, I don't know exactly which intersection he's talking about, and it does vary, but it really has to do, you said right turn lane, but first you said left turn lane. If it is the left turn lane, typically.
No, excuse me. No, he was talking about those turning to the right in the right turn lane were held back behind the thoroughfare. And if they were, in front of them, they could see to the left and continue on.
All right. Let me check on that. I would have to look at the what he's talking about. The problem is if you put him too far into the intersection, they won't be able to see the traffic, the actual light. So a lot of times that stop bar has to be back so that you can see, your green. A few intersections, because you can turn on right, red on right, or you can turn right on red. People do, pull, hopefully cautiously into the intersection so that they can turn. So what the law says is that you're supposed to stop, at the stop bar. And then after that, you proceed cautiously and then to see if you can safely do move closer to the intersection. You should be able to see to the left. However, I think I understand what he's saying. So let me look at a few of those intersections. I know where he lives. He lives right on Harrison, just west of Perryville. And so let me look at that intersection because that's probably one that he's, one of the ones.
I think he was speaking about various throughout the county and community, but I mean, and I get it, but my nature is if I'm going to take a right on whatever, say a 4-lane county highway, whatever it is, yeah, I'm going to stop back, especially if there's a crosswalk there, and I'm going to inch forward till I can see left. And if I can't see left, I'm going to wait till I get my arrow or green or whatever. But I mean, to me, like I say, I stop. It don't matter who's in front of me to the left. I'm going to go forward until I can see that way and then go. But I think he was getting at if the right turn stop line was forward of everything else. Now, if that doesn't make sense for whatever reason, that's fine too. But if there's somewhere that it makes sense, maybe we look at it. But you
Okay.
still have to have that stop line behind the crosswalk. So wherever that is, that's where it's going to be.
That's where you need to be. So, and after that, you set it, the right way. You're supposed to inch forward and then go when you can. But again, if you're too far into the intersection, you won't be able to see the light, whether it is green or not.
Yeah, and then they won't know when to go anyway. But it's just something to look at. And if you see somewhere, I don't know. He wasn't talking specifically, but just throughout the county that may help move traffic or whatever. So if you see
Okay.
anything there, we'll talk about it another time.
Okay, good point. Just so you know, actually, maybe he's into something, but a lot of the rear end collisions do happen. They're minor, but they do happen at those kind of movements. Because what happens is, there's the first guy, he moves closer to the intersection, and then the guy who's behind him, now he's looking left. And then the other guy moves up and then stops, but this guy is still looking to the left, and then they hits him on the back. It happens a lot.
I'll give Mr. Kelly the floor in a second, but the only accident I've ever been into was at South Main and Harrison, and we were in the right lane going to turn. And the guy in front of me looked left, the light was yellow, and he was going to go. So I looked left, but he changed his mind to stop. And that's when I got him. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Chairman. Happened to be on a motorcycle, and I was the one that got rear-ended.
Oh.
I was at State and Wyman, and I was turning right, and it was on red, and the car ahead of me went, and I pulled ahead, and the 80-year-old lady behind me hit me from behind, totaled my bike.
Yeah. Well, like I say, a lot of people are, you might expect the guy in front of you is going to go and he changes his mind and you're not paying attention. That was my episode.
Yep. It's typical at intersections where you can turn right on red.
I had the same thing happen.
So I would say whenever it gets worked out, and I would say expect Mike Zintek here on our committee and sometime in the future. And then I would also ask the committee, how do you guys feel about going back to in person? And if we need to get a bigger room downtown, whether it's 303 or do a little separation or what, how do you guys feel about getting back downtown and rubbing elbows?
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay.
Okay, so then again, Carlos, next time we got something that comes up, we'll just go with it downtown and make whatever provisions we got to get. Jim, did you have something else?
Will do.
Did you have something else, Mr. Webster?
No, just kind of a piggyback on what you were saying there. I'm glad that, first of all, thank you guys for voting for Mike Zintak. I think we'll get along just fine with him. He's a straight up guy. What you see is what you get. At an early life, when he was a young man, he thought he would be a priest, so he entered the seminary. And so after he was in it, then he figured out that that's probably not the way you want to be, but he stayed at that seminary and college, got his degrees and so forth, and then he went into law enforcement. So then he was in law enforcement for several years, and then he switched gears again and wound up in industrial manufacturing type stuff. And so, like I said, he's just a real straight up guy, you know. So I don't know him all that well, but I've known him for over 10 years or so, and he's the guy that type of guy that what you see is what you get, and he's not afraid to tell you what his opinion is on something, whether it's right or wrong. And then secondly, what I'd like to say, so thank you. I was hoping that we wouldn't upset the apple cart again on this appointments like we did with the appointment to the position. And so instead of making a big deal out of this, if the guy just stepped into the same roles that Boomer had, it's only for what, another 4 or 5 months anyways. And then we shuffle the decks again after the elections. And so I hope we don't make a big stink out of this committees that the guy is going to go on. So anyways, the other thing I just wanted to say is that I mentioned earlier there about an issue there, and that was on Hansberry and Yale Bridge, and a woman had a drainage issue there. And I contacted Carlos, and he immediately got one of the engineers on it there and contacted the person, whatever. And so I thank you for that. And then the second one was on Yale Bridge Road as well, and that was the guardrail over Coon Creek. Guardrails, and then the woman called because she thought, oh my God, they're gonna have those guardrails halfway across my yard and so forth, you know, and I explained it to her about how things work, but I said, I'll get a hold of Carlos, and Carlos got right on that too and sent somebody out, and they made her happy and got the guardrail deal figured out and everything, which they're doing right now, by the way. They've been working on it the last few days. So this just goes back to, I think it goes back to the culture maybe that Joe Vanderwerf had, because he was the same way, very responsive. And I think Carlos was a great student, and he's exactly the same way. You can pick up a phone and call him, boom, you got somebody on it. So I really appreciate that, because that makes us all look good. Thank you.
Yep, and just to add that too, back when, I don't know, it was a week ago or so when we had a little storm blow through, 50-mile-an-hour winds, had a tree go down just south of me here on Central. And like I say, by the end of the next day, Carlos had it all taken care of. So thank you again to you and your staff. And hey, kudos to you, Carlos. You're doing a great job. Thanks for everything.
Thank you, guys. You're a great committee to work for, and please tell everybody in the committee, I mean, in the board, that you know, and a few of them do call me at any time they have something. If I don't know the answer, or if it is somebody else's responsibility, I will you know, work it out. So.
Good deal. Anybody else got anything on their mind? Potholes, streetlights, things? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Girl, seconded by Mr. Kelly and Mr. Webster. And next time we convene, we'll be downtown somewhere. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we'll see you guys. Have a good night. Go start the
Good night,
grill.
guys.